The rain-soaked streets of Seattle gleamed under the streetlights as Elliot Harper clutched his guitar case, heart pounding like a drum solo gone wild. He stood outside his father's modest craftsman home, the place where he'd grown up, where every memory was a chord, some bright, some dissonant. Tonight, he'd play the hardest note of his life, telling his father he was gay. Elliot, at 23, had spent years crafting melodies to express what words couldn't. His green eyes, sharp with both fear and resolve, scanned the familiar porch where he'd once built forts out of blankets. The weight of his secret felt heavier than the rain soaking his jacket. He'd fallen for Noah Kim, the poet barista whose quiet words and warm smiles had unraveled him over late-night coffee runs. But his father, Thomas Harper, was a man of old-school values, stoic, private, a high school history teacher who spoke in facts, not feelings. What would he say when Elliot bared his soul? The door creaked open before Elliot could knock. Thomas stood there, his blue eyes softening at the sight of his son. "You're soaked, kid. Get in here." His voice, gruff but warm, pulled Elliot inside like a lifeline. The living room smelled of old books and cedar, the same as it had for decades. Framed photos lined the mantel. Elliot at his first recital, Thomas coaching Little League, and one faded picture of a younger Thomas with a man Elliot didn't recognize, both laughing under a pier. "Dad, I need to talk," Elliot said, his voice catching as he set his guitar case down. His fingers twitched, itching for strings to steady them. Thomas raised an eyebrow, settling into his worn armchair, the one where he graded papers late into the night. "What's on your mind, son?" Elliot paced, words tangling in his throat. He thought of Noah, how their hands brushed when Noah handed him his latte, how Noah's poetry readings at the cafe felt like a private serenade. I'm gay, Dad." The words spilled out, raw and unsteady, like a song played out of tune. "I've known for a while, and I'm in love with someone. His name's Noah." The silence that followed was deafening. Thomas's face froze, his hands gripping the armrests. Elliot braced for disappointment, for the lecture he'd imagined 1,000 times. But instead, Thomas's eyes glistened, and he looked away, toward that faded photo on the mantel. "Noah," he repeated softly, as if testing the name. Then, quieter, "I had a Noah once." Elliot blinked, confusion cutting through his fear. "What do you mean?" Thomas stood, moving to the mantel, his fingers brushing the frame of that old photo. "His name was Daniel," he said, voice low, like he was unearthing a buried memory. "We were close, back in '89, before I met your mom." The words hit Elliot like a chord he hadn't expected. His father, closed with a man? Thomas turned, his face a map of regret and secrets. "I never told you, Elliot. Couldn't. Not then. Not in the world I grew up in." Elliot's heart raced as he sat on the couch, trying to process this. His father, the man who'd taught him to throw a curveball, who'd grounded him for sneaking out to gigs, had loved a man? "Dad, are you saying you're?" Thomas shook his head, not in denial but in frustration. "I don't know what I am, Elliot. Back then, I didn't have the words. I just knew I loved Daniel, and it scared the hell out of me. So I buried it. Married your mom, built this life, tried to forget." Elliot's mind spun. His mother, gone 5 years now, had always been the heart of their family, her laughter filling this house. Had she known? Had Thomas hidden this part of himself from her, too? "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Elliot asked, his voice cracking. Thomas sat beside him, closer than he had in years. "Because I wanted to protect you, from the shame I felt, from the choices I made." He paused, his voice breaking. "But seeing you now, So brave, I'm proud of you, son. And I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough back then. The weight of those words settled over Elliot, both a balm and a wound. He wanted to ask more. About Daniel, about his father's life before. But the doorbell rang, sharp and jarring. Thomas frowned, glancing at the clock. Who's that at this hour? Elliot followed him to the door, his heart still reeling. Standing on the porch was Maya Delgado, his best friend since high school, her blue hair damp from the rain. "Elliot, you okay?" she asked, her eyes scanning his face. "You weren't answering your phone." "I'm fine," Elliot said, though his voice betrayed him. Maya stepped inside, her presence a burst of energy in the heavy room. She glanced at Thomas, sensing the tension. "Everything okay here?" Thomas managed a small smile. "Just catching up." He looked at Elliot, a silent promise in his eyes. "We've got a lot to talk about." As Maya kicked off her boots, Elliot felt the first stirrings of hope. His father's confession had cracked open a door, one that led to a past Elliot had never known, and maybe a future where they could both be honest. But the weight of that old photo, of Daniel's unseen face, lingered. What had happened to him? And what did it mean for Elliot's own path with Noah? The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, and Elliot knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Elliot woke to the smell of coffee and the faint strum of his own guitar from downstairs. He rubbed his eyes, the events of last night replaying like a song stuck in his head. His father's words, "I had a Noah once," echoed, both comforting and unsettling. He pulled on a hoodie and headed downstairs, where Thomas sat at the kitchen table, strumming Elliot's guitar with a clumsy but earnest touch. "You're up early," Elliot said, grabbing a mug. Thomas set the guitar down, his face softer than usual. "Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about our talk." He paused, his fingers tracing the grain of the table. "I owe you more than half answers, Elliot. You deserve the whole story." Elliot sat across from him, heart pounding. The kitchen, with its chipped mugs and faded linoleum, felt like a confessional. Thomas took a deep breath. "Daniel was my best friend in college. We met at UW in a history seminar. He was bright, fearless. He'd argue with professors, laugh louder than anyone. I fell for him before I knew what falling felt like." Elliot listened, picturing a younger Thomas, less gray, less guarded, laughing under that pier. "What happened?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. Thomas's eyes clouded. "The 80s weren't kind to people like us. AIDS was everywhere, fear was worse. Daniel wanted to be open, to live truthfully. Couldn't. My family, your grandparents, they'd have cut me off. So I pulled away. Broke his heart. Broke mine too." Elliot's chest tightened. He thought of Noah, of the way their knees touched under the cafe table, of the poems Noah slipped into his guitar case. Could he ever walk away from that? "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Every day," Thomas said, his voice raw. "I loved your mom, Elliot. Don't ever doubt that. But I buried a part of myself to build this life. Seeing you last night, it brought it all back." Before Elliot could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Noah. "Meet me at the cafe? Got a new poem for you." Elliot's heart skipped, but he hesitated. He wanted to stay, to dig deeper into his father's past. But Noah's pull was magnetic. "Dad, I've got to go meet someone. Can we talk more later?" Thomas nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "Go. Be with your Noah. Just don't hide who you are. Okay?" Elliot grabbed his jacket and headed out, the Seattle drizzle greeting him like an old friend. The cafe, a cozy spot called the Brood Awakening, was a short walk away. Inside, Noah stood behind the counter, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he steamed milk. When he saw Elliot, his face lit up, and Elliot felt that familiar warmth spread through him. "Hey you," Noah said, sliding a latte across the counter. "You look like you've got a story to tell." Elliot laughed, nervous. "You have no idea." He wanted to spill everything. His father's confession, the weight of it all, but the words caught. Instead, he took Noah's hand, their fingers intertwining briefly before Noah pulled away, glancing at the other baristas. "Not here," Noah whispered, but his smile was soft. "Come to my reading tonight? I wrote something for you." Elliot nodded, his heart racing. "I wouldn't miss it." That evening, the cafe was packed for the open mic. Maya sat beside Elliot, her blue hair glowing under the dim lights. "So you told your dad?" she whispered, nudging him. "Yeah," Elliot said, eyes on Noah, who was stepping up to the mic. "And he told me something, too. He's been through this. Loved a guy, hid it." Maya's eyes widened. "Whoa, that's huge. You okay?" Before Elliot could answer, Noah's voice filled the room, low and steady. His poem spoke of starlit walks, of hands brushing in secret, of love that felt like a song waiting to be sung. Elliot's throat tightened. He knew this was for him. The crowd clapped, but Noah's eyes found Elliot's, holding him in a moment that felt like theirs alone. After the reading, they slipped outside, the cool night air wrapping around them. Noah leaned against the brick wall, his breath visible in the chill. "What's going on with you, Elliot? You've been quiet all night." Elliot hesitated, then let it out. "I came out to my dad, and he told me he loved a man once, too. A long time ago. He gave it up to fit in." Noah's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of fear there, too. "That's heavy. Does it scare you?" "For us." Elliot stepped closer, their shoulders brushing. "No. It makes me want us more. I don't want to hide like he did." Noah smiled, but it was tentative. "I want that too. But my family, they're not like yours. They'd never understand." The weight of Noah's words settled over Elliot. He wanted to promise they'd face it together, but the shadow of his father's story loomed. Could love survive that kind of pressure? As they stood there, hands almost touching, Elliot felt the first cracks of doubt. The next week passed in a blur of music and questions. Elliot threw himself into his gigs, strumming chords that echoed his swirling thoughts. His father's confession had opened a door, but it also raised a mirror. Would he, like Thomas, ever choose safety over love? He met Noah at Gasworks Park, the Seattle skyline shimmering across Lake Union. Noah sat on a blanket, scribbling in his notebook, his sharp cheekbones catching the afternoon light. Elliot dropped beside him, guitar case in tow. "New poem?" he asked, nudging Noah's shoulder. Noah grinned, closing the notebook. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just doodling your name." Elliot laughed, but his heart wasn't fully in it. He told Noah more about Thomas, about Daniel, the peer, the life Thomas had left behind. Noah listened, his expression shifting from curiosity to unease. "Your dad gave up a lot," Noah said. "I get why. My parents, they're traditional. Korean immigrants. They'd see us as a betrayal." Elliot's stomach twisted. "You think they'd cut you off?" Noah shrugged, but his eyes were distant. "Maybe. Or worse, they'd pretend it didn't exist. Keep inviting me to family dinners, acting like you're just a friend." The words stung, but Elliot reached for Noah's hand, squeezing it. "We'll figure it out. Together." Noah didn't pull away, but his grip was loose, uncertain. "I hope so." That evening, Elliot went back to his father's house, needing answers. Thomas was in the backyard, tending to his small garden, a ritual he'd kept since Elliot's mom died. The sight of him, kneeling in the dirt, felt grounding. "Dad," Elliot said, sitting on the porch steps. "What happened to Daniel? After you left him?" Thomas wiped his hands, his face tightening. "He moved away. San Francisco, I think. Tried to live openly. I heard he got sick in the 90s. Didn't make it." His voice broke, and he looked away, toward the roses his wife had loved. "I should have been there for him." Elliot's throat burned. He imagined Daniel, alone, carrying the weight of a love Thomas had abandoned. "Do you think you could have been happy if you'd chosen him?" Thomas sat beside him, the steps creaking under their weight. "I don't know, Elliot. I loved your mom, built a good life. But there's a part of me that wonders what if I'd been braver." The question hung in the air, heavy as the Seattle clouds. Elliot thought of Noah, of the fear in his eyes at the park. "I don't want to wonder, Dad. I want to be with Noah. But he's scared. His family's different from us." Thomas nodded, his hand resting on Elliot's shoulder. "You can't make his choices for him, but you can show him what it looks like to be brave, like you did with me." The next day, Elliot invited Noah to a gig at a small venue in Capitol Hill. The crowd was lively, and Maya was there, cheering louder than anyone. Elliot poured his heart into his songs, each note a plea for Noah to stay, to fight for them. After the set, Noah pulled him aside, his eyes shining. "That was incredible," he said, voice low. "You're incredible." They kissed in the alley behind the venue, the city's hum fading around them. But when they pulled apart, Noah's smile faltered. "I want this, Elliot. But my parents, they called today. They want me to meet someone. A girl." Elliot's heart sank. "What did you say?" "I didn't say anything," Noah admitted. "I froze. I'm not like you, Elliot. I don't know if I can do this." The words cut deeper than Elliot expected. He wanted to fight, to tell Noah they could face anything together. But the echo of his father's story, Daniel's loss, Thomas's regret, made him pause. Was love enough when the world pushed back so hard? Elliot couldn't shake Noah's words. They lingered like a sour note, dissonant and unresolved. He threw himself into his music, but every song felt like it was missing a verse. He wanted to call Noah, to beg him to choose them, but he knew it wasn't that simple. Noah's fear was real, rooted in a family and culture Elliot could only partly understand. One rainy afternoon, Maya dragged him to an art gallery in Pioneer Square, hoping to lift his spirits. Her blue hair stood out against the white walls, and her laughter echoed as she pointed out a painting of two figures holding hands under an umbrella. "Look, it's you and Noah," she teased. Elliot managed to smile, but his heart wasn't in it. "He's pulling away, Maya. His parents want him to be someone he's not." Maya's face softened, and she pulled him to a bench. "You can't fix that for him, El. But you can be there. Show him he's not alone." Her words echoed Thomas's advice, and Elliot realized he needed to talk to his father again. That evening, he found Thomas in the living room, sorting through a box of old letters and photos. "Found these in the attic," Thomas said, holding up a Polaroid of him and Daniel, arms around each other, grinning at a music festival. "Thought you might want to see him." Elliot took the photo, studying Daniel's face. Open, joyful, a contrast to Thomas's guarded smile. "He looks like he was happy," Elliot said. "He was," Thomas replied, "until I left. I thought I was protecting us both, but I was just a coward." He handed Elliot a letter yellowed with age. "Read this. It's from him. After we ended." Elliot unfolded the paper, Daniel's handwriting neat but urgent. Tom, I don't hate you. I just wish you'd let yourself love me. You're enough just as you are. The words hit Elliot hard, mirroring his own fears about Noah. Dad, I don't want to lose Noah like you lost Daniel, Elliot said, his voice shaking. But I can't make him choose me. Thomas's eyes met his, steady and kind. You don't have to. Just love him enough to let him find his own way. That's what I didn't do. Inspired, Elliot texted Noah, asking him to meet at the park where they'd first talked about their feelings. When Noah arrived, his face was drawn, his hands stuffed in his pockets. My parents keep pushing, he said, voice low. They want me to move back home, to settle down. Elliot took a deep breath, channeling his father's courage. Noah, I love you. I want us to be together, out in the open. But I won't push you. If you need time, I'll wait. Just don't shut me out. Noah's eyes glistened, and he stepped closer, their foreheads touching. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. I'm just scared. They sat by the lake, talking until the stars came out. Noah admitted he'd been dodging his parents' calls, afraid of their judgment. Elliot shared more about Thomas, about the pain of a life half-lived. For the first time, Noah seemed to see a path forward, fragile but possible. The next day, Elliot invited Noah to meet Thomas. The idea felt risky, but he wanted Noah to see what honesty looked like, even when it was hard. At the house, Thomas greeted Noah warmly, offering coffee and stories about his teaching days. When Noah mentioned his poetry, Thomas's face lit up. Elliot's always been a dreamer, he said. Sounds like you two are a good match. Noah relaxed, his smile genuine. But as they left, he squeezed Elliot's hand. I want this, he said. But I need to talk to my parents. Face them. Elliot nodded, his heart a mix of hope and fear. I'm here, he said. No matter what. As Noah walked away, Elliot felt the weight of the moment. He was choosing love, but the outcome wasn't in his hands. Back inside, Thomas handed him another letter from Daniel, one that ended with hope. Maybe one day, you'll live your truth. Elliot clutched it, praying Noah would find his. Days turned into weeks, and Noah grew quieter. He still met Elliot at the cafe, still slipped poems into his guitar case, but there was a distance in his eyes. Elliot tried to stay patient, but the waiting felt like a song stuck on repeat. He poured his heart into his music, writing a ballad about love that fights to be seen, hoping Noah would hear it. One evening, Maya dragged Elliot to a queer community event in Fremont, a vibrant night of music and stories. You need this, she said, her blue hair bouncing as she danced. Elliot watched the couples around him, some holding hands openly, others stealing glances. He wanted that with Noah. Not just stolen moments, but a life together. When he got home, Thomas was waiting, a rare smile on his face. I found something, he said, handing Elliot a newspaper clipping from 1990. It was an obituary for Daniel, describing him as a beloved activist who'd fought for AIDS awareness. He never stopped being himself, Thomas said. I wish I'd had his courage. Elliot's eyes stung as he read. Daniel's life, though cut short, had been full, open, unapologetic. He wanted that for Noah, for them. Dad, I'm scared Noah's going to choose his family over me, he admitted. Thomas sat beside him, his voice steady. Love doesn't always mean winning, Elliot. Sometimes it means letting someone go so they can find their own truth. But you've given him something I never gave Daniel, a chance to see what's possible. The next day, Noah called, his voice trembling. I told my parents. About us. Elliot's heart stopped. What happened? They didn't take it well, Noah said, his words heavy. They said I'm disrespecting them, that I need to think about my future. But I told them I love you, that I'm not hiding anymore. Elliot's relief was tinged with fear. What now? I don't know, Noah admitted. They need time, but I'm not going back. I want to be with you, Elliot. For real. They met at the park, the same bench where Elliot had come out to Thomas. Noah's eyes were red, but his smile was brighter than ever. They kissed, not caring who saw, and for the first time, Elliot felt like they were truly free. Months later, Elliot and Noah stood together at a small pride event, holding hands as Thomas clapped from the crowd. Thomas had started volunteering with a local LGBTQ+ group, sharing his story to help others. Noah's parents were still distant, but they'd begun to call again, asking tentative questions about Elliot. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As the event ended, Elliot pulled out his guitar, playing the ballad he'd written for Noah. The crowd swayed, and Noah's eyes shone with tears. Thomas joined them, his arm around Elliot's shoulders. "You did good, son," he whispered. "You both did." The song ended, and the crowd cheered, but Elliot only saw Noah. They'd chosen each other, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. And in that choice, they'd rewritten the story Thomas had never finished. A story of love, courage, and truth.